Hello, friends. I know that you may have been hoping for a Schumann video from me today, but I have read the chart energies and over the last few days, and what I wanted to do was present to you my thoughts for solutions in these very choppy energies. And this is just my perception of an aspect of human energy that I think is very relevant right now. And I think that we are in a time, this is summer of 2021, June 28th, and we're in a time where there's a major shift. We have a cycle, a near-term cycle that's just ended. And so the energies have opened up and it's very, very choppy. What I see in the charts is the concept of multi-dimensions, but the issue with multi-dimensions is that if you don't know how to navigate it, then it's easy to get lost. And excuse me. And the best way to navigate it, I'm going to tell you the crystallized summary of what I have to say, is to connect with God as you define God, the Most High, the creator of the universe, the divinity that is the light within you. It's important to define what this is for you, because there are many who will try to define it for you, with or without your knowledge. For me, it's the source of all. This is the source of all that is, the creator of the universe, the spark of light that is the soul that lives within the human form. It's my view that connecting with this light that we are, learning to embody the light, understanding what this light is and how it flows through our human body, all the things about that will empower us to manage oneself through the coming changes and the changes we are literally in the moment right now. So I wanted to start by just telling you a quick story of how I kind of got to this place where I'm going to go through the information that I'm sharing with you. When I was super small, this is my story time for this video. I had a dream when I was very young, and I was very young. I don't know if I was 3, 4, 5 years old. It was a precious dream. And in the dream, I was hovered above earth. I was pretty comfortably sitting above earth with an extremely old man. And the relationship with this man, I felt so comfortable with him. I felt safe. He was guiding me as a young human child whose consciousness and spirit was at that moment both lying in bed, sleeping, dreaming, and with him above the earth. And he was telling me all about the earth, and he was pointing to different countries. It's like the earth was, he was moving as he was talking, and he was saying, this about this and that. And the details of that are not important. And I don't consciously remember them. But what I came away with that I did remember, from a very young age, I understood that I was living on a planet with systems that were messed up and that did not serve and address the needs of the people. And I knew and I understood so much about this from a small age. At the time, it did not seem unusual. I certainly didn't discuss it with anyone. But that was normal, right? That was normal for me because I had had that experience. And what ended up happening was that I became very interested in systems, and at first I wanted to just become an astronaut because I thought that would be super cool. And then I could just be away from Earth and these messed up systems. But that was not to be. And then I thought I wanted to go into politics, and I spent a long time like thinking about that, but that was not to be. And I ended up pursuing the path I did. I went into business. After some period of time, I came onto a path of personal development and learning. And it has been a huge blessing. I mean, everything has been a blessing because even, especially the very hard times, because that is our opportunity to learn the most and advance the most. That is what I have found. So, roundabout, I developed these skills of understanding energy. And although I'd been thinking about it for a very, very long time, some years ago, the process really ramped up for me, and I began sort of paying a lot of attention, developing discernment, energetic discernment, and other stuff. Excuse me. And through using these observations in my living life, I came to develop an understanding that really made a lot of sense and worked for me. So what I want to share with you now is some of that. The system or that I want to look at with you is a window into some important aspects of human energy, both within the individual and in groups, as a group, as a whole, the human population. And the reason that I wanted to look at this was because my interest has always been in the unseen. The reason why is because at first I had to understand why the unseen was affecting me. And then I learned to deconstruct it, to come to an understanding and to no longer be afraid of it. Because I came to the understanding that the unseen is an integral part of human life. So now, our story begins. Here we are on Earth. And what I want to talk about is, first, the energy that we experience as living human beings. Okay? So we're on Earth, living, and we have a heart, which is where the soul connection is with the divine. So here what I have is, here's a somewhat happy person living on Earth with nature. Here's a person who's doing okay, and they're comforting a person who's unhappy, okay? But in general, these energies that we live in here are, I'm just going to call that lighter physical reality, okay, where the energy is lighter than it has been in our human history, in our human past, even than 100 years ago. Okay, it's lighter now than it was during the world wars that we had in the 1900s. It's lighter now than it was during the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages. It's lighter now than before Jesus was born and came into a world with a lot of humans who were lost. Okay, so the world we're living in today is a huge opportunity for those of us who live now, because it's much lighter than it has ever been, despite the goings-on that you might see around you. Now, energy exists in dimensional states, okay? And within dimensions, energy can get thicker or denser, or it can be lighter. And as human beings, we like to assign good and bad, right? Because two things. Because we are, we believe in duality, and we experience duality in the way that we live, okay? So what I want to say is that nothing that I'm going to talk about is necessarily good or bad. But as human beings, we can experience it as good or bad. Because, okay, even though humanity and the earth is lighter than you could say it has been in who knows how long, maybe since the Garden of Eden, before the apple, I don't know, before, well, anyway, so if you think about it, our realm is lower and denser, for example, than the high angelic realms. Okay, so compared to that, we're living in dense, dark energy, you could say, with a lot of little lights, right? All the souls that we are. So that's why I want to say that there is and is not the idea of judging on this, because that's why I wrote this here, this quote. I can love the chaos as well as with the light, because besides the transformation within the self to reconnect with God, the Most High, the creator of the universe, the divinity that we are, our own soul, that is extremely important, in my view, in the current times, and to create the change that people want to see in the world. It comes from the divinity that we are. That's number one. But the second thing is that as humans, we have a lot of judgment on ourselves and then on each other. And what I have found is that if I can love without judgment, that it invites me to look at things in a much more expanded way. And it actually expands my consciousness. Now, this is a lot easier when situations are farther from us than when they are directly impacting us, or with direct, immediate family. It's easier to develop these skill sets on a broader view, okay? Because if there's a person or a situation creating chaos for you in your life, and it's uncomfortable, and it is actually a negative effect on your life, in that it is not bringing you to your highest outcomes, it's not in alignment with your highest good, sometimes we need to love that from afar and set boundaries to protect ourselves so that we can continue being the light that we are and the love that we are. And we can still love that chaos. Sometimes we need to do it from afar. But when we do that and disconnect our judgments and our need for things to be a certain way, that's when miracles can happen of transformation in those relationships. Anyway, let's get back to this. So here's the lower realms, all right? And the lower realms are denser. The energy is much more compacted, okay? So now what I want to talk about is very much lower realms, so much lower than our third and fourth dimensional experience on Earth, that they're actually in the flat dimensions of the second dimension, or extremely compressed energies, okay? So now here we are. Here's our Earth situation here. In the lightness of our current time, we have the opportunity as humanity to connect with divinity and truly experience love. Love is transformative, and it is one of the most, not one of the most, it is the most powerful force. It can create incredible changes in the physical world once you learn these concepts. So here is the denser realms, okay, down here. Now this is going to be in this scenario, this is a dimension that is not of our world, okay? And this is what I would call, for a summary, this would be like and I'm going to invoke a space of sacred discharge where a sacred flame burns, okay? So that the energy that I speak as I tell this story is all transmuted to neutral, okay? Because I don't want to transmit energy in this story that is not neutral. So as I speak, I'm asking that it burn in the violet flame. I'm going to call on Archangel Michael, the Archangel of protection, security, and divinity, divine will, to be with us telling the story. Okay, so in the denser realms, you could call these the Archonic realms, the demonic. You could call this, well, that's where this energy comes from. And then on Earth, it's played out through human beings who align with it, who align with Luciferian approaches, who align with negative and chaotic approaches, and things like negative ETs, negative energies. Or, some people are born to embody that, and some people are not, but become involved in it. Okay, now these denser realms here, and I'm gonna, for the purposes of this example, we're gonna call this the Archonic realm. Okay, a particular type of very, very challenging energy. So in these energies, okay, these entities are separated from God, from their source, from their own soul. That's how they view it. In truth, this is not the case, because nothing can exist without the energy of the Creator. Okay, but their connection is so minimal that they cannot feed themselves. Okay, the human being, for example, lives off of the life force that we are, and this life force that we are feeds us, and we have infinite access to this once we reconnect with God and understand how to empower ourselves and pour this light through ourselves. This is, in my view, what will create the dramatic changes in terms of elevating humanity that so many of us wish to see. But in the denser realms, this is a parasitic energy, and the reason it's parasitic is because it feels that it cannot connect with its own light, and therefore it feels that it must get its light from elsewhere, its source energy, its fuel to even live, okay? And so it cannot live off of, for example, sunlight, okay, or the light of the soul. The light of the soul in energy to me always looks like a sun, okay? And it cannot live off of that. The reason why is because it's too bright, and it would fracture these energies, okay? Just like the idea of the opera singer singing a high note and the glass shatters, right? Because the frequency that she's creating, or he, but the frequency that the female and this opera singer is creating is incompatible with the frequency of the reality that the glass exists in as a solid glass. And that's why when the two meet, it shatters. Well, so how does this energy manifest into the human realm? Okay, because it wants to parasitically live off of something, like how like an ivy plant climbs the tree, and over time, if the ivy plant is not cut off of the tree, it will over time parasitically suck the life out of the tree. On its own, ivy growing on the ground is fine, and in fact, it holds the earth, right? It can prevent landslides. It's a very beneficial plant, but when it's on a tree, it can cause a huge living tree to perish, in which case it needs to move on to something else, okay? So that's the nature of parasitic energy. So these energies in the denser realms, through whatever mechanism, found the earth realm, okay? So if you think about the frequency bands of Earth, and what do I mean by frequency bands? What I mean is the energy, the measurable energy ranges in which humanity exists in the world around us, the physical world. Trees, water, land, and then everything we make with that, right? Buildings, electronic, all the stuff that we make, crystals. These are frequency bands of Earth. And the videos that I do on the Schumann Resonance, right, address one of those frequency bands, which is a certain hertz level. That is also the hertz level that human brainwaves operate at, 0 to 40 plus hertz. Now, there are other frequency bands. Excuse me. Sorry about that. And the other frequency bands are not visible to the human eye. They may be measurable by some of our technological instruments, but we have to figure that there are frequency bands that even our technological instruments don't know how to measure, because the universe is infinite, right? And so here I drew these little triangles, dark triangles, and what I'm using them to represent is the inhabitants or the energy of these lower, denser realms. Because the inhabitants, okay, these little beings here, cannot survive on their own, and they can't absorb light from the soul, even if it was available to them, because they would fracture. They have to have stepped down energy that is from a divinely created energy source, okay? And the divinely created energy source that they use in our reality is the human being. Because the human being can act as what I would call a step-down transformer. The human being can buffer the frequency variation between the lower realms and the higher realms. How can that happen? Because the human being is able to access an extensive range of frequencies, including, in my view, frequencies that are not mapped or measurable by our current technology. And the human being can hold multiple frequencies of great variation at the same time. What that means is that a human being can, in the same day, go from extreme elation, awe, joy, to sadness, depression, grief, and the next day, do it again. The human being is an amazing energy system. We can hide things from ourselves for years that are, for example, traumatic incidences. Those can be in our field, like here. That's why I did this, the unhappy baby. Now, I'm not talking about somebody who's pregnant, okay? I'm talking about the inner child, okay? So this person's heart is darkened over because their inner child is very sad from going through trauma, okay? So yet they have a smile on their face. Why? Because this is compartmentalized, or it's hidden in their unconscious mind or subconscious mind, or whatever the case happens to be. Or they had a bad morning and, now it's later in the day and enough has happened to make them smile, but they haven't addressed their issues from the morning yet. Human beings are amazing. We're just amazing in our ability to manage energy. We're truly a miracle of the Creator, okay? And so that's why the human being can be used to buffer this frequential difference between the realities of Earth and the denser lower realms, okay? So the issue for humanity is that the best way for these demonic energies or denser, darker energies to access our divine life force is when we have been pushed down to the lowest part of our emotional range. because they simply can't handle the happiness, the joy, the awe, the enthusiasm, all that wonderful stuff that humans can generate. So when this hacked into our human systems or encountered our human systems, what did it do? It had to promote war, abuse, and trauma to be able to parasitically live off of our energies. Now, I'm not saying that these are the only cause on earth of these situations, because the human being has free will choice when they're born, and the self-responsibility to live one's life as one chooses. But I'm not addressing the self-responsibility yet. Okay, I'm going to do that in a few minutes. Right now, I just want to explain these non-physical forces that can affect us independently of our self-responsible choices, whether those are conscious or unconscious. Because we can make, anytime we don't consciously make a choice, but we're doing something or acting a certain way or believing something, we are making an unconscious choice to do that. Okay? And so as we start to bring our daily living life into more consciousness, then we claim more of the territory of who we are as individuals. And that limits the range of hacking that other entities can do into our human energy systems. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so we had the frequency bands of Earth here. Now we're going to go deeper and look at this more closely. So how would you infiltrate the frequency bands of Earth if you are this lower energy that we're going to use a triangle to represent? Well, I think that you would try to establish a bulkhead, right? That's one tactic that you could use. However, you could link up, right, to make yourself stronger. So here is the triangle, and here is the little entity within the triangle. Okay, so this is almost like a little capsule that it can live in our realm of its own energy, right there. And there, so it's got a bulkhead. If they could all link up, wouldn't they be so strong? However, here's the problem. There is a frequential difference in our realm that we talked about. So if they simply entered our realm, they would fracture. The reason why is the example I gave you of the opera singer fracturing the glass. So I'm calling this the infiltration by triangles. Now, we talked about that a human being can be a step-down transformer of energy. It can also be a step-up transformer on the positive, right? We can expand to higher dimensional states than we through, and we usually call those spiritual experiences, okay? Then we live usually day to day. But as we increase our consciousness and as we increase our awareness, and I'm not talking about intellect here, and I'm not talking about emotional maturity either, although those things kind of come with the territory, but not in terms of knowledge databases. What I'm talking about is increasing our consciousness in terms of our connection with the divine, and then how we live that in our life, what it expresses as through us in a conscious way. How do I live and embody my divinity? To me, that is what expanded consciousness is about. Okay, now, there are two states of being for the human being, okay? So there's a lower state where our energy is more compacted and denser. And there's a lighter state, okay, where our energy is more expanded. We're generally happier. These, as I said, can exist in the same person. But in general, for people who have, for whatever reason, been through trauma, okay, they can hold more of this lower state of being in their field. The inner child is unhappy, okay? And this is created through war, abuse, and trauma. Okay? Now, what happens is that the energy of those situations begins to look a lot like the triangle energy that's attempting to infiltrate our realm, doesn't it? In this example. Of course, I drew it that way because I'm linking the concepts. The reason that I'm linking the concepts is we talked about that if this energy wanted to infiltrate or hack into our realm, it would want to establish a bulkhead. And hold on, because now, there we go. Okay, so here it is. It's trying to think about how do I get into the realm right now. There it is. Okay, attempting to establish a bulkhead. And so it can't just come into our realm. It needs a place to land that frequentially, from a frequency standpoint, is similar enough that it could still exist in the realm. Now, when human beings carry this very traumatized energy within them, okay, this, when it's dense enough, it creates a sort of a landing pad for this kind of energy. Okay? Now, here's the human being that is in a lighter state of being, okay? They're enjoying the successes of their daily life, just the day-to-day, okay? But there's some darkness at the heart, okay? It could even be this person transformed, okay, after they've done a work on themselves, after they've healed themselves, okay? Here the inner child is pretty content, okay? The foundations of who we are, okay? Our soul connection is, we're able to feel it, it's intact, and we may still have some healing to do, okay? See how there's light in the heart coming through, but there's still maybe some fear and some anger, okay? Or not, okay? Because maybe we've learned how to handle that, how to feel the feeling, process it, let it go, okay? All right, now, let's go to the bulkhead concept. Here we are with the people that we originally started out with, okay, in the story. Here we are. Here they are. Now let's see what they are doing. This person here, see how their heart has lightened up? They have worked on themselves, expanded their consciousness, and they're generally in a positive frame of mind, okay? They're looking for their highest outcomes. They're living their life, enjoying their family. They're connected with the soul, with God, the Most High, the Creator of the universe. Here's the other two, okay? This person, they're in different stages of development, okay? This person has their heart covered over still, okay? And this is the person that was comforting the very unhappy person, okay, who had been through whatever they've been through, but is unhealed. What has now happened is that from the lower realm, energetically, like kind of like using Wi-Fi, the lower realm has hacked in and established a bulkhead within this person on the dark triangle of their trauma. Okay? And because there was a frequency match. Now, I'm going to right now tell you the solution to this. The solution to say, no, I don't want this, or if it's in one's body, to say this needs to stop, is to connect with God in the heart. And you simply do that by number one, defining who God is, okay? The Most High, the Creator of the universe. That's what I like to use. The divinity, the highest light, the source of all that is, the source of my soul. And you call on that energy, and then you say, no, I don't want this anymore. Please help me. Sorry about that. Oh, that was funny, though, wasn't it? Please help me, bells. Okay, so now here's the thing. This person who's hacked is now sharing their experience and the attraction of the lower energy with this person who was attempting to comfort them. Okay. Now, since this person is also somewhat unhealed, now they're attempting to offer it to this person who's not going to be interested. But it kind of depends on the scenarios here. This is a short presentation, so there's a lot more to all of this. But the easy way to say this is that if this is a person out in the world, it's easy for this person to just not be interested or interact. If this person is, or both these people are family members or co-workers or, I don't know, friends, close friends, then it becomes a whole nother situation to deal with. And I'm going to address that at the end, actually, how to deal with that. Because we love, right? We love the people in our lives, whether we resonate with them or not. Okay, so here we go. Now, the Archonic realm has now hacked into the human being, okay? And if you were from the lower realms, you would attempt to establish a bulkhead, but then if you really wanted to create a presence, right, bring the rest of your buddies, what would you do? You would establish bulkheads of traumatized people who are each and of themselves a bulkhead for the Archonic energy in close physical pockets on the landmass of the physical reality of Earth. Now, I'm just using the United States as an example. Where are the current obvious traumatized, places, cities where there have been a lot of terrible things happening to people that creates trauma, right? You would do that because how else are you going to fund? How else are you going to energetically fund, not monetarily, but energetically through source energy? How else are you going to fund your little civilization that is hacked in? The only way to do it is through using human energy, or the best way to do it in their case, in the current scenario. So you create pockets where the energy is lower. Now, I'm sure that you've probably experienced this, right? You go into, an area, or you visit an area, and you go, the energy just doesn't feel that good here, and there could be many reasons for that, because Earth is a very energetically varied environment. Humans are very diverse, and all that is great. Some of it is just simple diversity of a realm, okay, of a frequency band. But now what I'm talking about is lighter energy and denser energy, and the hacking of denser forces. Okay, they're more compressed energy of the dark forces that operate through humanity. Okay, so anyway, you'd establish beachheads. Okay, now let's say that this person here, besides trauma, let's say that a new mechanism was developed by these forces that had established bulkheads to work through human beings, and they were able to inject triangles into human beings by mechanical means. Okay, for example, use of an injection. And maybe there are aspects of that injection that mirror this kind of energy. And if you could have that injection replicate itself so that now the human body is filled with this energy, and it's a lower, denser energy, maybe even you could magnetize it to create a lower energy. Well, that would be a way of creating a new kind of bulkhead, wouldn't it? If some of the human beings that received this then passed away, the trauma related to that, okay, would be in the category of this, right? Because let's face it, there's really not much war on the planet now. There are statistics all about this, and despite what you read in the news, in general, global war is, significantly, it's gone from it's gone down like huge percentages. Like the number of people dying in war has gone down, and it's something like 90% or something from the world wars through to recent years. It went up slightly, but not very much in recent years. Okay, so if, let's say this is going away, let's say awareness, using psychology and other healing mechanisms to deal with abuse, trauma, let's say the increasing light coming into the planet has more and more people connecting with God. Let's say the children being born are crystal children who just have a turned on connection with source energy. And oh my goodness, what are you going to do, right? What are you going to do to not fracture in this reality? So let's say that you were able to create this fourth, right? Because we had war, trauma, and abuse. Now you create a fourth mechanism that's artificial, some kind of injection where you inject the bulkhead energy, the energies that resonate with what you need for a bulkhead into a human being. Now the problem is for the humans is that when the human passes away, it creates all sorts of trauma again, which benefits this energy because it uses it as a bulkhead. And this person here, who was the buddy, right, who was comforting them, they are very sad and traumatized. Okay, so they are creating a lot of traumatic energy that pours into the astral realm and can be used as a stepping stone to create more bulkheads and more environments for this archonic energy or demonic energy or whatever you want to call it. Okay, now here is the conscious person. And what can the conscious person do watching all of this? Okay, and here's the person that's passed away, and here is their soul light, their human soul light. Okay, because they are still they're still a child of the divine. Getting this situation, having this situation, does not disconnect them from God. God can still do miraculous healing for this person. Okay, miraculous healing doesn't disappear because this fourth mechanism of lowering a person's energy was created. Okay, God is greater than that. The light is greater than that. All right, so just because a person got this doesn't mean they can't ascend. It doesn't mean they can no longer connect with God. Nope, it does not. Human beings are born with that divine right, that divine ability, because they are born with a soul. That's key to the birthing process. Okay, so as they pass on, here's the soul light, right? That leaves the body in the usual progression when a human passes on. Now, what can this person do who's a bit more conscious, right? They're fully connected with their soul light, with God, with the divine in their lives. And what they can do is observe this situation in a state of neutral, in a state of prayer, in a state of meditative centeredness, in a state of 0 point. And first heal themselves, okay? Because it's important to feel your emotions, but if one allows oneself to be traumatized over this, it contributes to creating this pool of darkness, this pool of sadness, grief. And we have to feel our emotions, right? But we can learn to feel them and then let them pass on. So my mom passed away 2 years ago. It was a year ago now? 2 years ago. And no, it was a year and a half ago. And so I've been through this process recently, and it was, in hindsight, it was a blessing that if she was going to pass, that she passed at that time, because it was literally right before the lockdowns. So we were able to visit her in the hospital. So in the non-physical, because I can see that, I watched her her physical body. And I saw this. I saw the non-physical entities attempting to live off the remaining light that was in her as she was passing, as she was still alive but passing. Now, what I did was I claimed authority over the situation through prayer. I was shown that this was in the highest good, and I disallowed this from happening. How did I do that? Because I disallowed these entities and energies from entering the room, from entering the frequency space in which her body was in and her energy was in. And I couldn't have done this unless it was in alignment with her soul level choices. That's why, in other words, I checked in through prayer, was this in the highest good? And I got yes. And the only way that that could happen is that it was in alignment with her soul level choices. And I believe that she was working with me from a soul level to show me and teach me about this sort of thing, because otherwise I wouldn't have known about this as her body was passing, to protect her body with the light of God and to call in the angels to protect her. So that's the solution to this, is to pray, call in the angels, call in the light of God. And if the person's soul path is in alignment with that, then that is what's done. God's will is done, right, through us, through our prayer, through our requests. But the divine is the one doing the work. The divine is the one bringing the light and protecting. So was I grieved about her passing? I was grieved about it because it was a shock. And it took some time, right, for me to get through that. But at the same time, because of all my spiritual study, okay, I was able to accept that the only reason that this could be happening was if this was her choice, right, between her and God, that this was her time. And it really eased the situation for me to understand it that way and to see it that way. It really eased it for me. And I could not understand why she chose that time. Now, a year and a half later, I can see, it might be 2.5 years later. I'm losing track of time here. I'm not sure whether it was 2.5. It was 2 months before the lockdowns in March of, it was 2020. Okay. So anyway, a year and a half. But now that we've been through everything we've been through, I can look back and see, you know what? I know her soul didn't want to go through that, because she would have hated this whole thing. It was everything that was like all her trigger stuff. The last year and a half, I think it just would have been extremely difficult for her. And the other thing is that if she had passed in that year and a half, we would not have been able to visit her in the hospital. And I'm just thankful. I'm thankful to God that, in hindsight, I'm now grateful that if she was going to pass, that she did it at that time so that we could be with her. Not everybody had that. Okay, there's many, many people who are traumatized by the fact that they weren't able to have that. And so I'm just send a prayer out to all of you. Okay, it's just we all have our challenges in these passings, So, okay, so here's the thing. What is the solution to this? Okay, what is the solution? Whether a person has taken on, here it is, the triangles through whatever means it came, right? Whether it's war, trauma, abuse, or a human activity, that they agreed to do, okay? Like taking one of these injections, for example. How does this get healed? And this right here is the most important part of this video. At the beginning, I said that the answer was to connect with the soul, to connect with the light of God. In my view, the answer to this situation that resolves it for both sides, all sides, all of humanity, because all of humanity is now dealing with these issues in a very conscious way. You see, before we were dealing with the same issues, but we just didn't know, right? We didn't know what to call it. We didn't understand the system that was going on. We didn't understand the energies at play, right? When I activate the light of God within me, when I activate the light of my own soul, and I understand that I'm worthy to do that, that I'm a child of the Creator, and that I can make that connection, okay? Because that is who I am, right? This living human self is powered by the light of the soul. It is the temple, this body, okay, that I'm talking through the vocal cords, through the mind, making the sound with the air from my lungs, right? This is the temple of the soul. The soul is the light of the Most High God. Okay, so when I activate that within me, and I ask that to be, and I ask that to help me be in perfect alignment with that light that I am throughout my physical form, throughout my emotions, throughout my thoughts, throughout my spiritual being. Okay, what does it do? It creates a frequency environment within the living being, within the living soul that I am, within the living body, that is now uncomfortable for this lower dimensional state or for this demonic energy. Okay, when I clear, when my field is full of the light, okay, when I have healed from this trauma, right? When I am able to energetically clear it from my field, right? When I've healed from the trauma, I create a frequency band within myself, okay, that is no longer reachable, okay? ... Can't get there. Now, can't get there, okay? That is why I believe, as Jesus spoke these words, he said, "Love thy neighbor as thyself," the golden rule. The two components of this, as thyself, is the part that we usually forget. We focus on loving our neighbor, but we forget to love ourselves. Yet in loving ourselves, what we do is we honor the temple of the soul. We honor the physical human that I am, that we each are. And that clears the demonic force from the body. It clears these dense bulkheads from the body. They cannot survive, okay? And when we claim our authority in the human physical form, and we claim the energetic authority over all the frequencies that we are, both physical and non-physical, in the human body and the human energy field that surrounds the body, okay? This is what happens. These exit our field. Why do they exit the field? They exit the field because this is now an extraordinarily uncomfortable environment. They exit the field and then, okay, if there's nowhere to go, they break up. They break up, they fracture into untold numbers of pieces, and the angelic realm can collect these and take them to their place of highest good, okay? What I do is this is what I do when I consciously address clearing this energy from my field, or any, if once I've experienced an emotion and I want to transmute it. I work with my guardian angels. You can work with, the spiritual beings. You can work with Jesus. You can work with Archangel Michael. The beings that resonate with you, I would just qualify of the highest light. No matter who you're working with, that this is of the highest light, right? Because when you do that, you deny the ability for false light to interact with you, okay, and pose as a spiritual being. Okay, that's why I qualify. Even, when I started working with Archangel Michael, I qualified of the highest light, okay? Now, I was already connected with Jesus of the highest light, because I was introduced to him as a child, and sometimes you just know, okay? But anyway, So what I do is I ask Archangel Michael and his legions, for example, or my higher self, or my guardian angels. You can ask them to clear this energy and take it to its place of highest good. I ask Archangel Michael and his legions to do this is because I believe this is one of the reasons that Archangel Michael is so focused on Earth, okay, to assist with this process and to bring, this is what a peaceful warrior does, right? It's not an easy task, and it doesn't mean not fighting, but it means addressing these things in a different way and using the power of love. Do you see here that this is the power of unconditional love for the self, for myself, that disallows other entities to be in my body or my energy field? No, it's not allowed, because I have declared that through my divine authority. It's the divine authority, right, that shines through me that fractures this stuff, that causes it to leave my field, especially when I intend that, and then kaput, and then Archangel Michael and his legions, or however you want to do that. This is how I do it, and I invite you to do that if you wish. If you address the spiritual beings with a request, right, to work with them, you can do that. You can work with Archangel Michael if you wish, okay? This is how I do it. So I'm not advocating any particular religion or anything like that, but this is how I'm doing it that I share with you. The reason that I ask these beings, okay, to take this to its place of highest good, and I want to specifically address the Christians who are listening to this, because a lot of Christians are still using old-time mechanisms, okay? And this old-time mechanism that banishes, and I'm just, invoking the sacred flame here, that banishes this energy back to the lower realms, okay? Well, if you're going to banish the energy back to the lower realms, it's just going to try and find a new way to hack up here, okay? So I'm inviting you to consider a different way of dealing with this now, which is to give it to God, okay? Give it to God, give it to the Creator, give it back to Source. And so that's what I see Archangel Michael doing. I take it to its place of highest good. What usually happens is this energy returns back to Source, or returns back to God, the Most High, the Creator of the universe, okay? Otherwise, you're just filling up the astral realms again, okay? When you banish it to blah, 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 I'm not even going to say it. But you know what I'm talking about if you are a person who follows that traditional way of doing this. I'm inviting you, right, to give it to God instead, all right, so that we can quit filling up the astral realms of Earth with all of our dense energy. And that's the same thing here, okay? When you clear this energy, right, when you finally learn how to do this, okay, that you give it to God, that you ask the spiritual beings to take it to its place of highest good. Why do I say that? Because only the divine knows where every single little bit, down to just the smallest particle of energy, where that belongs in the universe. Who knows where that goes? The divine knows, okay? The Creator knows where that belongs. I don't know. I'm just a human being here living on Earth, trying to do the best I can. So I give it to Archangel Michael, the embodiment of divine will, and I ask him and their legions, his legions, to take it to its place of highest good. Okay? Now, when you have someone in your close family, close friends, okay, and you're just not able to get along with them because of disagreements, past trauma, situations that are happening, mindsets, can't see each other's point of view, polarized views, these kinds of things, which are very prevalent right now. What you can do is pray for that person from afar, okay? You love them as they are, okay? But you can pray for them you can pray for them from afar. If if you meditate, you can hold them in love in a centered place. If you're at 0 point, you can hold the 0 point energy, right? While just loving, thinking of them with love. You can send prayer, right? You can send prayer to that person. What's going to happen is, in alignment with what's in their highest good, their higher self, right? Their higher soul self, can use that energy, right? Can filter that. And this is the step down transformer of the higher self, the light of God in our life, our guardian angels, right? Can guide us on the path. This is why prayer works, okay? Because prayer is a directed energy. What modulates the amplitude, essentially, of that energy is the higher self, the soul-connected, source soul-connected higher self, all right? So if this person is in the hospital, for example, and they want to live at a soul level, like it's not their time, right? Like with my mom, okay? If it was not her time, she would have lived, okay? This is the orientation that I have. If it was not her time, she would have lived, okay? And what would have happened is all of our prayers for her and everything would have assisted in empowering, right? Because we're asking the divine, but it's the human praise, right? But it's the light of God. You're calling on the light of God, and then the light of God is what heals the person, okay? So this is what I'm saying, and there's no judgment here, right? Because some people, like, my mom, for whatever reason, it was her time. She was ready to pass on for whatever reason, okay? And this can be very, very challenging. Right? I'm not denying that it's challenging. But with living people, okay, with a living person where there's a disagreement, by healing yourself and disconnecting from the argument, these are the steps, right, in my view, that are most likely to create a miraculous healing between you and the other person, your neighbor, your friend, your family member. You heal yourself. You connect with God. You bring that light in. You fill your energy field. You follow the impulses of the divine in your life. Okay? You deny a home to the lower energies. You become a living role model in your lived experience. And there's a reason why I use the word lived experience. And I have been using this term for years. Okay? It's because this does not have a lived experience. This does not have a living experience. This is a parasite. Okay? This is a parasite that does not live on its own. This is why I use the word living life, living experience. I am differentiating between the soul-connected, God-powered human being, okay, the Most High, powered by the light of the Most High, the creator of the universe, the highest source level light that there is, okay, the creator of all that is. This person is living. It's a living human being, okay? This is a parasite, okay? It is living as a parasite, but it's a completely different reality. It's it's almost like a different universe, but it's a different realm. Okay. Love thy neighbor as thyself. First, you love yourself. Okay? Then you love your neighbor. When you learn to love yourself unconditionally, to accept the light of God into your life, and it takes some humbleness to do that, right? Usually people feel like they're not worthy because of all the different reasons, right? So receiving, allowing yourself to receive from the divine is a key part of healing the world. Once you've healed yourself, you're emitting a light. You don't have to do anything. It's just how physics works. How physics works is that the more that you embody this light within you, the more it emits out into your home, out into your neighborhood, your community, your state, your country, the world. Okay? It's that big, okay? And you don't have to do anything. You just have to be you, connect with the light. Then this happens. When you insist that outcomes have to be the way you want them, you lower this light. The basic reason why is because then you're telling the divine what it's supposed to do when the divine flows through you, guiding you. And then I mentally make a decision with my mental mind that is a lower frequency than that at which this light operates. So when I use only my intellect to make a decision, and this is why I was talking about earlier, that I'm not talking about consciousness expanding as pure intellect, because that is a lower frequency band than what comes through as the light of God. This frequency band defeats magnetism. It defeats magnetism. It writes magnetism back to a centered place. It defeats electricity. It writes electronics back to a centered place. And it enhances the human life and the human life form. And it can reconnect a person full of triangles by whatever cause. It can reconnect them back with the Creator and, in my view, heal their life, heal their body, their mind, their emotions. In doing this process out of the great unconditional love that one feels connected with the light of God, we heal ourselves. We heal our families. We heal the world.